Hello YouTube! My name is rhianaB and welcome back to Survivor, and this time we're going to be covering David vs. Goliath Season 37. Okay, so I have a bit of explaining to do as far as the last review series is concerned. I know that I never finished Survivor Ghost Island. Honestly, I got caught up with other things involving school and my job, and I just could not find time to get that taken care of, because also I was having a hard time doing my RuPaul Drag Race series as well, because I never finished season 10 of that. So, I apologize for not finishing the series last season, but I'm dedicated now to focusing on making sure that this series goes really well, and hopefully I will get it finished. Nothing else will, distract me or anything like that. So, without further ado, let's delve right into David versus Goliath. Okay, so first off, let's go off with the tribes. First is the David's tribe, because they're actually going by David versus Goliath. They're not doing, like, normal tribe names like they usually do, which is a little bit interesting, but first we have the David's tribe, which is Nick, Gabby, Pat, Christian, Carl, Lursa, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, Elizabeth, Davy, B. I'm gonna assume it's B. I know it's spelled B-I, but I'm calling it B because I think Jeff calls her B, and Jessica. And then on Goliath, we have John, Allison, Mike, Dan, Alec, Natalie, Natalia, that'll be confusing, Jeremy, Angelina, and Kara. Hopefully that is everyone. It's basically 10 people per tribe. And from the get-go, you already get a sense of like slight entitlement coming from some of the members of Goliath, which honestly, you have to expect that given that they're being called the Goliath tribe. They're being called the big, strong, the confident, so they kind of want to portray that a little bit. I don't think everyone does, but I feel like a little bit of some of them do have that entitlement. So we start with the first challenge, which is going to be to win a shelter making kit. And what happens is the Goliath team picks what they perceive as the weakest players from David, and they also will pick the strongest from their own tribe. So it's the two strongest from Goliath going against the two weakest from David. Now, you think that would be a very uneven match, but the thing that makes this interesting is that the Davids then get to choose which course the Goliaths have to take, as well as their own, because they each get 3 options for each section. One is like for balance, one is like kind of more endurance, because they have to like crawl through like netting and stuff like that, and then the final one is a puzzle. Well, actually, I take that back. The last segment was 2 puzzles and then 1 option to throw bags onto a platform. So the Davids choose for Goliath, they pick a plank, like a rope bridge plank bridge, if that makes any sense, a tube netting, or net tube, and then a cube puzzle, which was like 15 pieces, I recall. And then the Davids pick for themselves the water beam balance, a crawl through, which is like getting on, on your stomach and just crawling through underneath the netting, and then a slide puzzle, which is 8 pieces, I believe. And lo and behold, the Davids win. It was actually pretty close. So the Davids weren't doing too terribly bad. Oh, I probably should say also that the Davids were Christian and Lursa, and then on the Goliaths it was John and Allison. I forgot to say that. But lo and behold, I mean, Christian pulled off probably the fastest puzzle solves in Survivor history. It literally took him a couple seconds just to get that slide puzzle done. I think I even made the joke while I was watching it, like, because I remember Spencer in Cagayan had a really quick puzzle solve, like slide puzzle solving thing, and Christian just beat his record. So Davids end up winning. They get the shelter making kit. We move on to going back and forth through tribes. So I'm going to try to make this as clean as I can, and also as fast as I can, because there's a lot to cover here. So we first go to Goliath's camp, and we get introduced to Mike, who I didn't know this, because also I don't really watch the show. He was on Amazing Race, and I looked him up. I believe he's been on Amazing Race 2 times. He's also a writer, a director, and an actor, which kind of brings me closer to him because that is my field of study. I'm currently in school for film and for writing, so obviously I'm going to gravitate toward Mike a lot. But that does put him in a bit of a threat position, and also someone that you wouldn't want to win. But the thing is, we've seen that happen before, where people are in the beginning are like, oh, we don't want him because he's been on this before, he has money, da 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 da. that doesn't always work with some people, so we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, we have to have a showmance, and this season it is Dan and Kara, at least in the first episode. Dan obviously is very attracted to Kara. Kara, I think, is attracted to Dan, but I think she's more savvy in the fact that she's going to be using Dan to help her in her gameplay, so we'll see how that works. Now to David's camp, we have Pat, who I believe works in construction for a living, and he is helping to make the shelter, although he's starting to rub people the wrong way, mostly because of his personality. He makes kind of weird, inappropriate jokes, a little loud and boisterous at times, so he's starting to rub people the wrong way. Back at Goliath, we have Natalie, who is feeling very left out as far as being the oldest person, I think, on either tribe. But she decides to kind of flip that around. At the beginning, she feels a little bit like the outsider, but now she's like starting to boss people around. She keeps saying like, oh, you know, I work with 20-somethings all the time and I'm their boss. Thing is, though, you gotta really realize that you can't always take your personal aspects of life into Survivor. You can bring some of them in, but if you do everything, including like the part where like if you're a boss and you run over people, or you run people's jobs or whatever, that can rub people the wrong way, especially in a game like this. So, whereas Pat on David is like rubbing people the wrong way because of his personality, with Natalie, it's more of, I guess it is personality as well, but I think it's more on like the aggressiveness and the part about being bossy, because also there's just people that don't like being ordered around, so that's gonna rub people the wrong way too. We also had a little moment with John having a little confessional talking about how he's known as all these other different types of names from his wrestling career and stuff like that. But the thing is, he wants to play as John. And that's interesting because also I have a feeling that he's trying to learn who he is in the game of Survivor, which isn't a bad thing, but I'm wondering if that's going to be like a hindrance to him and if it's going to block his gameplay, because he's trying to figure out who he is outside of the pro wrestler, outside of all these personas that he puts on. So, is this going to be a thing where he's going to be more focused on finding who he himself is instead of focusing on him playing the game? So that's, again, going to be up to future episodes for us to see. And then we have people complaining about Mike because he goes off looking for the idol very, very early, which can be a risk. You can do it and have it work. However, if you go out for too long, or maybe you don't have someone with you, or you don't have a viable excuse as to why you're gone, that's already gonna put a target on your back, and that's essentially what Mike had done to himself. Even he had admitted that he had made a pretty rookie mistake, and he really did. Back on David's camp, Nick is the one who's the main focus, I feel like. He's kind of, and I want to say he reminds me of a certain character, and I can't think of someone right now, but he's being very aggressive in his way of trying to get to people and get people in his alliance. I mean, he already is like trying to find like alliance names, like being the Philip Shepherd and trying to find, alliance names that kind of stick together. I found that a little cheesy, and I'm like, really, dude, you're gonna focus on that and not try to focus on who you think should be in your alliance. So I get that Nick is trying to play the game, but I don't know if he's putting all of his focus in the right places as of right now. And also, now he himself is also starting to rub people the wrong way, and he's being more targeted for being lazy and not doing anything, because Nick himself said in his confessional that he's trying to save energy for challenges. He doesn't want to put all the hard work into camp life so much. Thing is, though, you gotta get firewood, get water, do something. Don't be a complete bum just lying in the shelter. You gotta do something, or people are going to obviously know that you're not gonna commit to anything, so that puts a big target on your back. So we already have a lot of targets so far, and we're only halfway through this. Now back to Goliath. We have Angelina and Allison, I believe, who go looking for the idol. And then this just starts a whole domino effect of everyone on Goliath trying to look for the idol. We had Mike, who's continuing to look for the idol, and then Jeremy goes in, and then John. Everyone and their mother is seemingly looking for the idol. But out of freaking nowhere, Dan finds the idol, and we don't even really see him find it just from them searching through the woods. He tells us in his confessional, he literally had it hidden in his crotch, and just out of nowhere he found it, and I believe he shared it with Kara and somebody else. I'm still getting used to people's names, so he did find it with Kara and another girl. I don't remember who she was. I think she had darker hair. But basically Dan now has an idol, so that could come into play in the future, but we'll have to wait and see. We had a fun little moment back on the David's camp where Davy catches a random octopus that I guess kind of washed up onto shore. And that was a really cool little funny moment. I'm kind of liking Davy. I really liked his personality a lot, so he's gonna be interesting. And then I believe it's Jessica. I believe that's who this is. Jessica and B open up about domestic violence in their lives, where I believe Jessica's mom was a victim of it and B herself was a victim of it for 5 years. And this kind of all culminates to Nick opening up about his mother overdosing and the effect that that had on him. So it was really nice to kind of see just kind of pure personality and pure emotion come out of the contestants so early, because it shows how human they are, especially since already we had Nick kind of being shown as like kind of a slight antagonist in a way, whereas everyone else we still are trying to get to know. But this kind of opens it up and makes it more human and more relatable to these characters, especially since in the future we're going to be seeing a lot of backstabbing, a lot of lying, so it's nice to get that human type of feeling through so early on in the season. Then we move on to the immunity challenge, and unlike in the reward challenge, Goliath ended up winning. It was again very, very close. I feel like this season we're gonna have a lot of dichotomy as far as, you know, who's gonna be winning the immunity challenges, because there are a different mix of people on each tribe. It's not gonna be like Ghost Island where it was like, you know, Navidi winning all the time, you know, and leaving old Malolo. I finally remembered Malolo, who just basically gets decimated. So I don't think that's going to be happening this season, which is good. And on the chopping block for Tribal Council is, I feel like it's Nick and Pat. I think they're the ones who have like really kind of stirred things up quite a bit. So those are the people on the chopping block for the David's tribe. But however, we get a bit of a snag in plans. Apparently on the boat ride, because they usually take boats to get back and forth to the islands for challenges in their actual camp, apparently there was a big massive wave that just kind of smashed the boat, and apparently it did something to Pat's back, and he gets they stop at a random island, I believe, and he's just on a stretcher. He's in pain. His hands are just like shaking like really, really bad. And at first I'm like, well, what the hell's happening here? Like, what happened? And then obviously the explanation of what happened. And the fact that something happened to his back. Like, your back is something you don't want to have hurt, or at least not severely hurt. And apparently they heard a noise and he's just in so much pain. There was a possibility that he could have had a fracture. I wouldn't say a full broken back, because that would be extremely painful. I think he'd be screaming a lot more than he was. Maybe a fracture, maybe a really bad pull on the muscle. But basically he's in a lot of pain. The medics automatically rush in to try to help Pat. And Jeff obviously has to come out and see what's going on. And basically the doctors are saying to Jeff, to Pat, and to everyone else that there is no way that he can get through this because it's so severe and he's in a lot of pain. Now obviously Pat, from his screaming and the fact that his body is literally shaking out of control, proves that he knows he's in a lot of pain. He knows that there's something bad happening, but he still does not want to leave the game. He keeps saying, you know, I don't want to quit. I don't want it to end like this. But in that situation, when it is your physical body that is at risk here, you kind of have no choice but to leave the game, in which that is what ends up happening. So out of circumstance, the first person to leave the game was Pat. I don't know if this is the thing that's happened before, where we've had our first elimination in Survivor to be a medical evac. I don't quite remember that happening. If any of you guys know, leave me those comments down below, because I could be mistaken. But it is very, very sad to see someone getting pulled from the game, not even from like an injury that happened at camp or at a challenge, or even get voted out. It was just a complete, utter accident and a matter of circumstance that didn't really involve the game at all. It was just more transportation, which is very, very sad. Hopefully we will get some more info about what happened in his recovery process, because we did find out at the end of the episode that Pat did make a full recovery and he's doing well, so that is great. I want to get more info though, and hopefully at the reunion they may cover that, especially since, like I said, if this is the first for Survivor, they have no choice but to talk about it. So we ended on a pretty sad note, an unexpected note, but still sad. So that's basically the first episode right there. So okay, next week, first off, we have Natalie, who's becoming the antagonist of Goliath. We have Lursa, who's being targeted. We don't know by who yet, but it turns out that she's maybe being targeted by somebody. And then Christian kind of maybe coming into some type of a leadership position or in a decision-making place. Again, we'll have to figure out what that is. It'll be interesting to see how he plays the game because he's very much like an intellectual. I see him as being kind of like a mixture of Cochrane and Ryan. Cochrane from Caramoan and from South Pacific, who's obviously won Survivor before, and then Ryan from Healers and Hustlers. I already forgot the title. It reminds me of both of them, kind of in the same package. I feel like he's a little bit more awkward, but I am intrigued to see how he plays. Which leads me into some of the players I think are going to do well this season and ones I think are probably not going to last. Obviously, Natalie I don't think is going to last very long because of her abrasive attitude. John, I don't know how long he'll last, especially if we get closer to merge time. I don't think they would want him around only because he's a big guy. I could change my mind, obviously, but from the get-go, I don't have the best vibe from him as of yet. Nick, I think, could be in trouble unless he's going to go further in the game because of strategy and whatnot. Right now, I'm not too sure about him. Allison is a little shaky for me as well. I'm not too sure about her placement. Mike as well. I love Mike. I get a good feeling about Mike, honestly, because of the connection thing and yada, yada, yada. But as of now, I don't know how far he's going to make it because he is a famous person John technically is too, but you kind of associate more success from Hollywood than you do from certain sports and stuff like that, or at least I think so. So we'll have to see about that. As far as people who I think are going to do well, Christian I think is going to do pretty well. He's already shown himself off quite a bit, so I'm going to be excited to see how his gameplay goes. I think also Carl I think is someone that I think could be a good strategic player. So I'm gonna look out for him. Lursa, I think I have a good vibe from. I like Davey, I like B, I like a lot of the Davids. And then everyone else, I'm not getting much vibes from a lot of people on Goliath as of yet. We focus mostly on certain people that I don't know if I got a full grasp on everyone, but I don't know. I'm leaning toward a David. I'm leaning toward David's doing really well this season. But I know that there are some Goliaths that I probably will like the more we get to watch. So I don't know. I'm just really excited. The first episode, I already am in a good place. I think there's gonna be a lot of compelling characters. The cast is great. The dynamic of David and Goliath may actually be more interesting because I think in the beginning it was seen as more like a cheesy trope type of a thing. But I think now it's going to be very interesting to see how people play up their position in the beginning and see how they change over the course of the time. Or maybe they won't change. We'll have to see about that. But I'm excited for Survivor David versus Goliath, and thank you guys so much for watching my first review of the season. So if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, leave me comments down below. What did you think of our first episode about Pat's medical evac, about the challenge, the season as a whole, the cast as a whole, anything about it, just leave me those comments because I would love to read them. And if you want to see my future videos or videos I've already done, go ahead, hit subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so you can be notified when my videos come out. That's all I have for you guys today, and until the next video, bye!